Sonido Software presents Story of a Studio, where we meet with recording studio owners and audio professionals, hear of their passions, and share their unique stories with you. Hey, this is Brady with Story of a Studio. Thanks so much for joining us today. Today we are speaking with Nate Brown with Rocket Skates Recording.
How's it going?
Hey. So very excited to chat with you, hear about your studio. I've been here before.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really cool space.
Thank you.
So excited to talk about the space itself, your experience, and really the story behind Rocket Skates. So,
yeah.
I was reading that you got into music early. I'd love to hear about the background. How did you first start getting into music? What are some of your earliest memories?
I think it was really as a young kid, just kind of bonding over my dad's stereo system and records and just thinking all that was super cool. Around 5, I just thought drummers were the coolest thing ever. Like Animal was my favorite Muppet, right? So I got a little paperhead drum set when I was 5 that I, of course, immediately put a hole through. Actually, a neighbor kid put a hole through. So, and that was kind of the journey. And it was just a long, pretty much everybody's the same, right? I loved music. That's why I got into this industry, right? So, in that regard, I don't feel very unique. So, yeah.
It tends to come up a lot, I think. A lot of audio engineers, at least that I speak with, and I know, they tend to start in music,
mm-hmm.
and they roll into audio production because of experiences along the way. But
yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about, drumming. You got into drumming early. What did that lead to? Did you get into other music? What was your music experience?
I remember around that same age, I don't know if it was before or after I destroyed my drum set, but my mom put me in piano lessons like moms do, right? And I hated it like kids do. I do remember one piano lesson where she brought out the pots and pans because I was just struggling rhythmically, and she's like, let's drum them. And I was like, this is the best piano lesson ever. Some failed piano lessons. And then when I was around 12, I saved up for my first real drum set. It's actually out in the live room somewhere right now. I still have it. Yeah, and it was really from there, around age 12, when I started funding my own musical interests, and really it was my interest at that point, not my family's shared interest anymore.
Yeah.
And that's when it really kind of took off for me from there.
Okay, so Animal from the Muppets was an influence, but what?
Absolutely.
Was that your primary influence in getting into drums? Was that you saw him playing drums, you said, I want to be Animal?
I honestly I don't remember. But it had to be just when I was that age, I was like, drums are my instrument. That's the instrument I will play. And that just stuck with me. It was just I'm a drummer. I don't think myself as a drummer now.
Okay.
I think of myself as an audio engineer who once played drums okay.
Okay.
But yeah, it was just no, I'm gonna it was just, I set that intention and I just rode with it for a long time. Just I'm gonna buy some drums. And I saved up for years. Just all my birthday money went into saving up for a drum set. No, yeah, so I started playing guitar in high school when I started a band and the guitar player just couldn't come up with anything. So I was I'll get a guitar and I'll write music. And then I really took a liking to guitar and, pursued that for a lot longer. I also always felt weird about playing drums when people were in the house because drums are a very loud instrument. I don't think my parents understood that electronic drums really existed. So I was just 12 years old in a relatively small house just banging away on an acoustic kit. And one day I got all of a sudden very aware of the noise I was making and forcing on other people. And so that kind of killed practicing at home for me. And I think that's why I took to guitar. It's a lot more practical.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Now, did you play with any bands at the time?
Just high school stuff. Yes, I've just always kind of struggled with the band politics dynamics. You know what I mean? Usually when I've written a song, I'm just I know how I want it to sound.
Uh-huh.
But I also really struggle with just telling people what to play, how to play it, and when to play it. So that kind of dichotomy just couldn't that mental dichotomy came with being in a band for me. Just just made it really difficult and really just kind of anxiety producing all the time, because like I know how I want it to sound and I know it's not sounding that way, but I don't want to tell everyone that they don't have a say in how this song works out, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like that really helped drive me to taking something like this where I can more just kind of call out suggestions on other people's music and not have nearly as much skin in the game, you know?
Interesting. Yeah. What about music? I mean, early music as a whole in your life.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of genres really shaped, your passion for music early
Yeah.
on and even up till today?
Yeah. So we were raised on some real like cheese ball, like, my dad was, I think, about the biggest Styx fan that could possibly exist. And I didn't even know that Styx was a bad band until bad band, right? Like a cheesy band that didn't really stand up until I realized like none of my friends knew what I was talking about ever.
Mm.
But yeah, so it was just like a lot of classic rock. I went out and found the good classic rock mostly on my own, Zeppelin and all those guys. Those weren't played in our house. It was like the cheese ball stuff. So yeah, but definitely like that 70s, like, early mid 70s rock was kind of staples growing up.
Okay. And even today, do you feel like you draw upon that influence for a lot of the work you do today?
Definitely, I don't think this is necessarily limited to just the 70s, but I feel like there were a lot of bands in like the late 60s and 70s that were just kind of like, that just kind of caught lightning in a bottle, you know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
just like it was all the right members, that just like that band couldn't have been what it was without all the right members, like the Beatles or, Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And, I feel like there was just like a lot of magic being captured, both in like, musically, but also like the audio engineering field was really exciting, and they were really exploring a lot of boundaries engineering wise at that time too, that I felt helped really make the music more interesting in a lot of ways.
Yeah, very creative time period. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
They were breaking standards and generalized roles, and they were doing things differently than they'd ever done before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
I had a colleague once say like, why are you such a big fan of Eddie Kramer? All he did was this on the pan knob. And I was like, and he was the first one. Like, it's not about like, oh, all he did was this. He was the first one who did it at least tastefully. You know what I mean? Like, it was a new, exciting thing that they were using what is now commonplace, mundane technology, but it was once exciting. And it was like, let's explore what we can do with this,
Mm-hmm.
And I think the pioneers in kind of anything like that, as mundane as it seems to us now, like I feel like that deserves a lot of credit.
Talk to me for a little bit about audio production, because you mentioned that you consider yourself more of an audio engineer than maybe a musician today.
Yeah.
What did that change or that evolution look like over your life?
I mean, a lot of it came around to just not having the time for exploring my own musical hobbies, as I've gotten busier and busier with just being an adult, whatever that means, and, running the studio, and, I'm also like a full-time dad. Not full-time anymore. I'm a very large amount of my time dad. So, something had to give, and like my own personal music interests like took a side for a long time, but like I'm getting back into it now, and like finding my courage to like contribute more with my clients, and take on more of a producer role instead of just like being the audio engineer, But I just needed the space for it, and I just did not have space for it for a while.
Yeah. I think that happens for a lot of us, right? I mean, to excel in certain areas, sometimes you got to cut back for a period
Absolutely.
of time.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the early stages of audio production for you. Like, is there a period that you remember first getting into it? Like, what piqued your interest about getting into recording or producing?
Mm-hmm. It was in high school again. I was trying to decide, like, am I a jock or a musician, right? Like, I was playing football and also still had feelings. So like I still, was wanting to pursue a career in music, or like, because when you're 16, you think like, you're good enough to be, I was not good enough to make a career in music, is basically what the realization came to. Is like, I blew out my knee playing football, realized that football was off the table. I had already kind of come to the realization that like, making a career as an actual musician is probably not like as a pure musician, probably not in my future, just given everything about it. But as I was recovering, I was actually watching the documentary Some Kind of Monster, like the making of Metallica's worst album ever. But I watched Bob Rock take just like a song that was just sounded really bad and turn it into something that like was like something that like you could actually listen to, that didn't sound awkward and had a flow. And I was like, that, you know, like I didn't even think before like that helping people improve their songs and their songwriting was a possibility. But I had caught myself a lot, like, you know, listening to records or whatever and thinking like, well, why did they do it that way? Like, there's clearly like such a better way to have like sung that or like played that. And it was something that I realized that like I was already doing, and it had just never occurred to me that I could make a career out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. So now, when you were playing music in high school, did you get into recording your own music as well?
Not in high school. Okay. I didn't start recording stuff until I was in college, just trying to write my own music and realizing that there had to be a way to just learn how to do all of that better. Mm-hmm. And that's what kind of led me to going to a trade school. I went to the Conservatory of Recording Arts in Phoenix. And kind of pursuing an education that way, and really just doubling down and putting forth like a career path at that point. You know.
Tell us about that experience then. I mean, the educational side, I mean, as far as your interest in production, did that just fuel the flames, or what was your experience?
Absolutely. You know, it's not like you can't learn all the audio engineering stuff online nowadays. Like, you totally can. But it was a really cool experience being able to like learn from like instructors who'd won Grammys, and, you know, people who've been in the industry for a really long time and had more than just like technical knowledge to pass on, but like personal advice and like, you know, like, hey, like I noticed this thing that you specifically as a person do that you should maybe work on, and like, you know, this could be a conflict for you, kind of stuff. So like having that personal guidance, I feel like was really helpful. And, you know, I learned a lot more like love for just like the technical aspect of things, and just really seeing how things come together, and just like hearing other people just kind of wax poetic about it all the time was, yeah, definitely inspiring, and really kind of like helped propel me forward. And it also gave me opportunities that I wouldn't have had if I just learned it on my own. You know, that school's, you know, pretty well connected. So I got, you know, internships at some really great studios in LA that definitely provided me lifelong friendships and connections, and just opportunities and memories that I won't ever, you know, let go of. So yeah, it was definitely worth it, outside of still paying off student loans, right? Like it was a worthy experience.
From a small one-person home studio to a large multi-room facility, audio production studios are looking for the best tools for effectively managing their studio business. As an audio professional, you may be trying to manage everything from keeping new project leads from falling through the cracks, making sense of your weekly production schedule, keeping track of project timelines and progress, understanding which invoices have been sent and which payments need to be collected, how to best receive feedback from the latest version of your mix, and so much more. Some audio professionals try to cobble together a dozen different software apps to make sense of their studio business workflow, which becomes cumbersome. But you don't have to. Not when you have Sonido Software. Sonido is designed for audio production studios like yours to bring your full studio management into a single software platform designed for managing your daily production efforts. In one system, you manage all your contacts and leads, your projects and task lists, your full studio schedule, your financials, and much more. Consolidating many of these benefits into a single system saves you time. It eliminates the many individual disconnected apps and provides a more intuitive studio management system designed specifically for your audio studio. Managing your studio can be simple and rewarding. Why cobble together a complex mess of systems when you can more easily manage your studio with Sonido Software? Click the link in the show notes or video description to see how your studio can get started with Sonido Software today. do you have any stories or specific examples, like, experiences that you had while going through school that stick out, like a really cool client you worked with, or just a funny moment in the studio, or anything that sticks out?
I mean, like, so the very first band, so like one of your, like, they break your course up into like 10 different cycles. And so your cycle 5 is like kind of like your midterms, right? So you have to basically bring in a band or like an artist and have, I think it was like 10 to 12 tracks that were like recording at once, right? So you could, and it was on tape. So you were displaying mastery of signal flow and the console and like the tape machine, and that you can do it redundantly and not just like vocals over a beat, right? And so I found a band that was just like, a lot of bands down in that area just know that there's that school and that there's, students who are looking for recording projects. So there's all kinds of bands on Craigslist just being like, hey, if you need a cycle 5 or 10 project, we'd love to get some free studio time, So I found a band called Jack the Cat, and I remember, so we started at like 10 p.m. because you start after like school's closed. And the lead singer was probably still one of the most energetic people I've ever met. Like, not on his own. I think there was definitely some help. But like, I remember we were done at like 3, 4 in the morning. They just recorded like 10 songs.
Wow.
Just, because we were just tracking live, just like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And he was just still just like 3 in the morning, just like full of energy. Like, what do you guys want to do? I'm like, I got to go to class in 3 hours. He's like, that's fine. I got to go to work in 3 hours. What do you want to do? I was like, I want to sleep is what I'd like to do. And yeah, I recorded my first fart in a microphone that session. Of course, it was the singer. Sorry to that U87. But yeah, I mean, it was a good experience, I mean, I'm the kind of guy that learns from mistakes and like from doing things wrong. So, like I definitely learned a lot about like managing clients and like just kind of keeping people under control from that experience a little more,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm sure there's a lot of others that have had similar experiences, and I think I'm not one to do the late night sessions, but
Yeah.
I'm sure those are some of the most fun sessions to do.
Sometimes. We just finished in December here, we just finished doing like what we call lockdown sessions, where we had a reggae client who just rented out the studio for 24 hours a day for a week, and I'm way too old for that stuff. I've still put in my fair share of late nights. I try not to, because I do believe that, grinding that hard really isn't that great for the project as a whole, is kind of my personal belief. But, there are people who love it. I've got engineers who sleep on the couch here all the time, and I don't get it. But, I guess, if that's how you want to work, and if that's how you really work best, then great.
Yeah, that's your process, right?
Yeah.
If that's how you bring out their creativity. Yeah, it makes sense. So tell us a little bit about the experiences that came from that. I mean, not only the education, obviously you had some great foundational education that came from that, but you talked about opportunities that came from the education side. What did that lead to?
Yeah, so, part of your education there is that you have to complete an internship. So they've gone and established relationships with like a lot of recording studios in all the big cities. And, even here now, I take interns from that school now too. So, they've just got an ever-expanding network of studios that they can farm out to. But if you do really well, they'll get you into some of the A-list studios. So I got to get an internship at the Pass Studios, which is where Chris Lord-Alge used to mix before making his own mix room. When I was there, the engineer Greg Fiddleman was working on a Metallica DVD, actually. So it was kind of fun to watch that moment come full circle a little bit,
Yeah.
And, it was just a legendary studio that is, unfortunately, as a lot of studios in LA are now, defunct. But, they recorded like a lot of my favorite bands, and, again, like having the opportunity to work with like big league players like Greg Fiddleman, who did not actually like me that much. Like, I forgot to take the tomatoes off of one of his sandwich, and that was the end of it. But I also was never the kind to manhandle people's food. So that was always weird for me, but that's what was expected. And so like I will admit, like, I was kind of a bad food runner because I refused to put my hands on people's food. and I should have. So anyway, I learned that. Manhandle people's food if it's your job. Just do it. Maybe use some hand sanitizer, but yeah. So, like, again, like, a lot of the opportunities that came from that was learning how to navigate professionally, learning the do's and don'ts, like I would trip up and accidentally, when I was interviewing for another job, I disclosed some of the studio's business and like what their calendar was like. And I heard about that, and like that was a mistake, and I learned from it. Now I don't talk about anybody's business,
Yeah.
And so yeah, from there I got a job at East West Studios, just like another legendary studio, and just made some friendships and connections for life there. And again, it was just like learning and building. Like a lot of the early stages of my career, looking back now, was really about building my network, and like that's kind of been a recurring theme that I've heard for that everybody's recipe for success really kind of boils down to building your network. And so that's exactly what that allowed me to do, was get out there and build a network that was much more than just like a local network. And that still carries through with just having people I know who can repair gear. Those are all connections that I gained from there, where now it's like I've got this rare DBX 160 that nobody here can work on, but I've got a friend that I went to school with who lives in Nashville now who can, so it's, little things like that all build up to help create success for you in the future.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good perspective. Your experience with, specifically those two studios as an intern, was it what you were expecting? Did it exceed expectations?
It was terrifying.
Was it?
Yeah, I mean, it was, and I haven't been an intern in Los Angeles for 13 years now, right? When I was there, you were very much not a human being, right? You were expendable. You were like, one wrong move and you're out of here because there's so many people who want your job, and which is true, but it's also just kind of like a really demoralizing and inhuman way to work. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people who are drawn to the music industry, are people who tend to feel things a little harder a lot of times, and so, when you're constantly feeling like you're going to be fired or just being told like, interns are worthless, like you start to internalize that a lot, or at least I started to internalize that a lot. And I just kind of found that to be like a really unhealthy thing. I'm working this unpaid internship that I'm expected to make just like my whole life's focus. I'm not being paid. I'm broke. I'm 22, I don't have any skills besides what I just learned at school, and I'm not allowed to make money off of that right now. And so I just found the whole thing to just kind of be kind of bad for your mental health. At, my coworkers and I would joke at the end of a shift like, oh, don't get fired, because it was like everything we did was like, are we going to get fired if we do this wrong? And it's just not a good way to work.
Yeah.
I feel like I did worse work because I spent all my time overthinking. And I'm really grateful for that, because it really taught me a lot about how I don't want to treat my staff. Like here, like, mistakes are how we learn. Mistakes are how people grow. And we're really trying to foster that environment like, hey, like it's okay to mess up, just don't do it twice. Did you learn from it? Great, then we're cool. Don't do it again. Everything's great. I'm not gonna fire you. You're not worthless,
Yeah, I think that human aspect makes a big difference. I hear that all the time about internships, not only in, out west, but I mean all over. And I think it's refreshing to hear your perspective and internalizing those experiences and saying, man, when I'm in those positions, I want my interns to have a better experience. That's really great.
Yeah.
Well, Nate, let's talk about the next phase of your career then. You've had some incredible experiences growing up, education that led to some wonderful opportunities with studios out west. Talk to us about the next steps. How did you end up here with Rocket Skates, and tell us the origin story of Rocket Skates recording?
Yeah, the origin story. I moved home from LA to take care of just like some family stuff. I just didn't feel right, working a job for free while my family was home struggling through a lot of stuff. Moved home and had to get a job at one of the big box retailers, which really sucked, coming from like a curriculum where we just kind of like kind of chuckled about like the big box pro audio guys a lot, you know. But you know, I was grateful for that experience because I was able to really like acquire gear for this studio and, you know, basically kind of bring back one thing that I realized when I got here is that there weren't studios that kind of that I knew of that kind of fit that vibe of like being professional and also comfortable and being a place that was like kind of vibey, you know, had that like, you know, you don't have to worry about like being on the clock here kind of vibe. That also didn't feel like you were just sitting on somebody's bed in their bedroom while they were, you know.
Yeah.
So I definitely wanted to bring that vibe here. So did my business partner who was, you know, cut his teeth in Nashville and had also moved back. So we shared that same vision. We met each other working at Guitar Center. You know, we got all of like our Pro Tools HD system and like a ton of our microphones and all that at employee cost. So it was definitely, you know, not how anybody envisions their career starting out, but it was really monumentally helpful in, you know, helping me achieve, you know, the vision that I had.
Yeah. Yeah. And is that when you started with that business partner, you started Rocket Skates?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that, you know, we broke ground here on like New Year's Day of 2013.
Okay.
And, you know, we had to do a bunch of demolition in this room. This building was built in 1942 as a ammunition factory during the war effort.
Oh. Uh-huh.
Maybe not 1942, but during the war effort, you know, as an ammunition factory, and it looked like it hadn't been touched since then.
Wow.
So we had to like rip out a bunch of all kinds of just old, nasty like lead pipe. I probably have lung cancer from the asbestos now. Did a lot of demolition. I learned a lot about just carpentry in general. You know, we swung the hammers until we got nail guns, and then we gunned the nails. We did all the everything, you know. So I really learned a lot about acoustics in that time.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it felt like such a grind, and like I was doing things in such like an unconventional and like not the right way. But I learned so much doing it that way that I really wouldn't take any of it back.
Yeah, it's valuable, right? Do it yourself, so you know, and you know what you do better differently next time. Yeah.
I definitely don't want to do it myself twice.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I did it. I really am.
You can speak from experience for the next one then.
Tell other people what to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've earned it.
Well, that's awesome. And the name Rocket Skates Recording, then, that's a really unique name. It's really cool. I think it's memorable for a lot of people. What did that come from?
Wile E. Coyote. I was a Looney Tunes kid growing up, and Wile E. Coyote just always had some zany scheme to try to like basically shortcut his way into what he wanted, right? Like, I wanted a career as an audio engineer now. And I started with no money, no really established client base because I was pretty fresh out of school, probably a little arrogant about it, right? But it was just my harebrained scheme to catch my Roadrunner, right? And I didn't know if it was going to work or blow up under me.
Yeah. So that was back in 2013, you said?
I came up with the name around 2010.
2010. Okay.
Yeah. And so I started like, for a while, I was just doing kind of like mobile recording. I had like a little mobile recording rig, and I would do consulting for other people around town. So I had like Rocket Skates Audio LLC, knowing that I was going to develop into a studio. It was in my plans very early on. I knew what I wanted when I came home. So.
Okay. So Nate, tell me about your clients today then. What is the clientele that you try to draw into the studio, and how has that changed over the years since you've been building Rocket Skates?
Yeah, you know, I mean, originally I was sticking to what I knew, which was rock string-based stuff. The studio, I don't know what it was, but like initially we started attracting in a lot of like folk and like bluegrass type players, and that really helped me like develop a lot more appreciation for, you know, bluegrass, folky music, indie music in general, like acoustic music in general, I should say. And then, you know, we started drawing in like a lot of rap and hip hop clients. Again, just like really taught me like a whole brand new appreciation for all these different genres that, like, you know, I always knew and like, you know, never completely disliked, but like I really learned a lot more about like how to appreciate those genres more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now we're doing voiceover work, book on tape, like audio post-production for film. We do a lot of restoration, stuff like that. Podcasts, of course. There's always going to be podcasts. And then still rock, folk, hip hop, orchestral music, just anything that involves a sound pretty much now. Like we're equipped for it.
Awesome. Okay. And do you find that a lot of your clients are repeat clients? They're all coming back? Do you find a lot of new clients?
We're getting a healthy mix right now. We've got our loyal clients who come back, who have also been telling everyone they know. So it's been really great to just have our just see our support grow and grow. I feel like some of that too is because we've really tried to invest back in the Salt Lake music industry as well.
Oh, how so? Yeah.
We hold like music industry. In fact, just last night we held a music industry mixer here that is just focused on getting everyone from a bunch of different genres into a room, networking, talking, creating opportunities for like guest appearances on songs, or for networking with venues and getting just cross headliners, things like that. And it's not only has it done all that for people, but I also feel like it really leaves people feeling inspired creatively, and like there are, in fact, steps that you can take for success in the music industry, and it's not just left up to hoping somebody hears you online.
Yeah. So I like that a lot. Like I'm a big believer in giving back, right? And I think we always, to an extent, we expect something in return. But I mean, being that altruistic person that wants to give and just be a part of the music community, I find it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
People take notice.
Yeah.
That you're not just trying to draw them in to take money, but you're really sincerely interested in their career and helping them connect with others. I mean, you talked about networking, how important that was through your education, and now here you are giving these musicians in the community an opportunity to network and connect with others in the space. That's really neat.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's I feel like most of what I do is just like giving people things that I wished I had, and I think it's just kind of asinine to see a need for something that you can, really help everyone around you, and in the process, really help yourself as well, and not take that opportunity and not, help in that way when you've got the space for it. Just seems just silly to me.
Yeah, well, that's incredible. The space itself, it's a really neat space. In what ways are you differentiating Rocket Skates from other studios in the same area?
Yeah, I don't think it's really a conscious effort. There's a lot of great recording studios around, and people have their pick of the litter of a lot of really great engineers, producers, recording studios all around the valley. I think what draws people to us is just that they really feel like they're part of something. When you start coming and you start showing your face and you're acting like a professional, you kind of become part of this Rocket Skates family where like we all try to hold each other up and pass opportunities to people when we can. And I think that's what draws people, is that like I think we really focus on like the human part of the industry, and we're trying really hard not to lose sight of that, and I think people appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll bet. That's awesome. So what would you say to someone who's new in audio production? Whether they're getting ready to go to school or they're interning or wherever they are in that life cycle, what advice would you give to somebody in that position?
The advice I would give to myself would be like, get your ego out of the way as quickly as possible. The quicker you just get your ego out of the way and realize that you're going to make mistakes, you're always going to have something to learn, and everyone that you talk to has something to teach you, then, the quicker you're going to flourish and bloom and realize that like, you're not this island of a person, that there's support and opportunities for you, as long as you get like your need for your own like validation or whatever out of the way. I see that happen a lot with people who, a client doesn't like the song or the mix that they sent them, and they're just like, oh, well, I don't know how to work with you. It's like, yes, you do. Listen, like, get yourself out of the way, stop taking things as a criticism, and start taking it as an opportunity to make something better. And the quicker you realize that and you quit being hurt by feedback or just by what you see as your own shortcomings, like the faster you'll grow.
Well, last question for you is probably a strange question, but
I love weird
being
questions.
being Rocket Skates recording, have you caught the Roadrunner?
No, I don't think so. Maybe. So I saw this really great like Seth MacFarlane bit on his Cavalcade of Cartoon Comedy about Wile E. Coyote catching Roadrunner and then just having nothing left to strive for. I don't think we're actually ever supposed to catch that dream. You know what I mean? Like, there's still so much stuff that I want to do with my studio, right? I want to set up an Atmos room. I want to get like more gear, all this stuff, like, so there's always some kind of like something to chase. I try to give myself that thing because I just, otherwise I feel like you get complacent.
Yeah.
So
that's wise. And you talk about growth and the opportunity to continue growing. Yeah, that's
Thanks.
huge. So yeah, keep chasing that Roadrunner. Well, really appreciate your time, Nate. This is Nate Brown with Rocket Skates Recording. Anyone who's listening to the podcast or watching the video on YouTube, where can they find more about you or more about the studio?
RocketSkatesRecording.com is, kind of our home hub. You can book sessions there. You can see pictures of the studio, check out work we've done. There's links to our social media channels on there as well. But yeah, I mean, if you just search Rocket Skates Recording, we're just the one. So we're pretty easy to find that way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate it very much, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, thanks, Brady.
Thanks.